It's another episode of Back Porch Sports. He's Ronnie Sanders. I'm Scott Hamilton. And for the next hour, we're going to take a lap around the Southeastern Conference with a little less than a month ago until the start of the college football season. But Ronnie, I'll tell you one thing that's already wrapped up. Talking season in the books. Big announcements left and right during talking season about this endorsement deal, that endorsement deal, and some coaches outside the SEC throwing shade. Are you ready to take a dive into it?
I'm ready. We got a lot to talk about.
We do have a lot to talk about. Big Ten Media Days last week in Chicago. And going in, I wondered what Tony Petitti's messaging would be. We had to know it would be about trying to expand the college football playoff to 24 games. The Protect College Sports Act, which looks like it's not going to be becoming a real thing for quite some time, if it never does. And then, of course, the Big Ten patting itself on the back, maybe tearing a rotator cuff or two with regards to, all the money it's bringing in, $1.37 billion in 2024-25, and how many championships it has right now in the big sports. I'm talking about 3 straight in football, women's basketball, and men's basketball. It's a lot to absorb, I know, but I'm going to throw this out there to you, Ronnie, and it's going to make a bigger point. I think the Big Ten being on this run is not only good for college athletics, specifically college football. I think it's actually great for the Southeastern Conference. Do I have your attention?
I actually agree with you because iron sharpens iron, and so I think that it's great for both conferences. I think it's great for college football.
I agree. And what it's doing, Ronnie, is look, the thing that has made college football so special, the primary thing is that it was a regional sport. There's no other sport in America other than perhaps NASCAR, and we can debate that another time, that is as rooted in its region, in its locales than college football. And it's basically been like the Civil War, the North versus the South, the East versus the West. And we kind of got away from that during the SEC's run of dominance. It was the SEC, the South, and then everybody else was just whatever. Now there's more parity across college football, and I dig it. And even Tony Petitti was talking about how the rivalry with the SEC is actually a very good thing. But the Big Ten with these 3 championships right now, after going so long kind of just watching the SEC collect national championships like carnival prizes, well, it's feeling pretty good about itself. I've got a clip I want to play for you. You're going to like this. Curt Cignetti, head coach of the defending champion Indiana Hoosiers. Of course, he's going to be the headliner at Big Ten Media Days. Everybody waiting until he came to speak on the final day and all that. And there's no telling what comes out of his mouth. Listen what he had to say. Tell me he's not taking a shot at the Southeastern Conference after you listen to this.
From NSI, you mentioned the grind in your opening statement. Iowa, Penn State, they'll kind of speak for themselves. The Oregon game last year, regular season game last year, speaks for themselves. Do you look at that grind? You've done it now twice, getting to the postseason. Is that grind of the Big Ten season a net positive by the time late December, January comes around, or a net negative for where the team is at?
No, I think that's a loaded question. I think your job as a head coach and the assistants is to equip your roster, make it as strong as possible with adequate depth at every position throughout the team. When you play that many games, you're going to get some guys dinged and injured. Things happen. Next man up mentality. The Big Ten is the best league in football, and a lot of really good football teams. It's hard to win on the road. Very physical football teams, very well coached. It definitely prepares you for the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. I mean, we don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. We believe everything's earned, not given. And when we fall short, we say we fell short. We don't cry a river, whine, and complain. All right? And that's why we're the best.
Coach Cignetti, thank you so much.
Wow. We don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I could call him a clown, but he just won the national championship.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, good. He's got to defend the conference and all those things. That's great. It's like we've talked about before. It's great for college football. Both conferences play 9 games. The SEC has to play an additional Power 4 conference game, which the Big Ten does not. So, if you look at the depth of the schedule, you can go to outside of Mississippi State, you can go anywhere in this conference and lose. I don't think that's the case in the Big Ten.
I agree 100%. And I'll tell you, and we've talked about it here a little bit, not having to play that non-conference Power 4 opponent has got to be one of the major points of contention or sticking points with regards to the negotiations between Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, and Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, because it's not apples to apples when you look at the scheduling model. It is not.
And it's not apples to apples anyway, because if you look at the depth, we've talked about this before on this same show. You've got really 9 premier programs in the Southeastern Conference. You've got, if you want to count Indiana, who's the losingest program in the history of college football.
Unbelievable.
But you've got Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, I guess Oregon. Well, who else you got? Rutgers?
Well, you'll have a lot of mediocrity. Nebraska is not Nebraska. Minnesota was never, not since the days of Bronco Nagurski. And it was really illustrated when we went over the top 50 college football players of all time, Sports Illustrated's list, and the Big Ten had no player in the 21st century on that list. It's rooted in all this tradition and all this lore from the early parts of the 1900s. But you've got to play that non-conference Power 4 opponent. And the good example, Ronnie, would have been Clark pointed it out. If Texas had not played Ohio State last year, and let's arbitrarily say they played Bowling Green, Texas would have gone to the playoff. More than likely would have kept Notre Dame, and Miami out of the playoff. Would have kept Miami out of the playoff.
Yeah.
So scheduling does matter. And I'll tell you who else doesn't like it. You can't tell me, sitting here on this day, this August day in 2026, you cannot tell me that the television networks that partner with the Big Ten, I'm talking about Fox, CBS, I believe NBC might even have a piece of that pie. You can't tell me that they don't want them to fudge that schedule and fix it so they require a Power 4 opponent.
Of course it is. It's more revenue. You got more to sell. You got more big games to sell.
Well, it's easier to sell. That's for darn sure.
It's easier to sell. And frankly, the Big Ten and the SEC ought to come up with some sort of scheduling arrangement.
Well, maybe that's part of the 2014 playoff model that these guys are talking about. We know that Sankey and Petitti are the guys that run everything. Maybe that's something that's being kicked around. What it would require, though, is some détente, and you like that word from your civics class. Détente between, it would require détente between ESPN and Fox. I don't know if that can happen. I know if there's a 2014 playoff, that means additional inventory, and then Fox gets a piece of that pie. But anything 16 or under, ESPN doesn't have to divide it up. They still have the resources for it. I respect Cignetti for his candor. I respect him for backing up absolutely everything he said. Okay, so if anybody in the Big Ten can take a shot at the Southeastern Conference, it is Curt Cignetti. I will tell you, though, who should not ever take a shot at the Southeastern Conference, and that's Bret Bielema. And I have thoughts on this guy, but he was also feeling good about himself during Big Ten media days. Here's what well, that we'll litigate that another time. Here's what he had to say about the Southeastern Conference, and he's now coaching again in the Big Ten.
I spent a couple of years in the SEC, was with Slive, and then transitioned to Sankey. And I just think about it now, everybody's going to have, opinions, and obviously they're going to draw the Big Ten, SEC, and all that goes around about that. But to sit in the room with both of those guys, I think with Tony and the vision and experience that he has, and to be in the room where Sankey, I know he's got to protect the SEC, and they kind of want to live in 2005 forever. But I think the forward thinking of where we are in college football is an awesome thing. So,
Stuart Mandel with The Athletic. Brett, you just said something earlier about the SEC wanting to live in 2005 forever. Can you just explain what you mean by that?
Well, I think I just made the headline, right? Well, I became a head coach in 2006, so I was going back before I was a head coach purposely. And I think what I'm saying is, like, I went to the league, I went to the SEC, and it was a completely different league, in my opinion, than the one I was in the Big Ten prior. And just with the basically the two biggest things, the biggest components are the transfer portal and revenue share, or NIL, however you want to describe it. When those two elements came into college football, the whole world changed. It's overly obvious to say that, But I think anything to predate that is just a different time in college football. It's just.
Oh, Captain Obvious. Captain Obvious there pointing out different time in college football. It's a different time in college football. I hear Bret Bielema speak, and I'm hearing a man who had a good run as a head coach at Wisconsin. I sometimes forget how good he did at Wisconsin. Three Big Ten championships, 2010 to 2012. Now, bear in mind, Ohio State was down. That was during Tattoo Gate. He was there for 6 years, 2006, 2012. Decides he wants to try the SEC out.
Didn't work out real well.
It didn't work out real well, Ronnie. Bret Bielema's record in the Southeastern Conference, 29-34 overall. Typical Arkansas record. 11-29 in the Southeastern Conference, and he never won more than 8 games. Goes back to the big. He's out. He's an assistant in the NFL and doing all this and that. And he finally goes back to college. He gets the job at Illinois. Now he's popping shirt buttons because he went 9-4 last year, 5-4 in the Big Ten, and he's talking about the SEC wanting to live in 2005 forever. That's not going to age well. That will at some point come back to bite him.
Well, probably sooner rather than later. But, hey, look, give him credit. He's done a great job at Illinois, and he did a great job at Wisconsin. He did a terrible job at Arkansas. But there have been a lot of people that have lost Arkansas. And he's right. It is a different time in college football. But, I think if I had coached in both conferences the way that he has, and I had fallen flat on my face at Arkansas, and I had been able to win in the Big Ten, I mean, if you feel good about yourself as a head coach, maybe that says something about the conferences.
Maybe it does. I agree 100%. The hubris. Okay, first of all, God bless him. He wanted to try to do it against the best. He left a really good situation at Wisconsin and decided, you know what? I'm going to go up to the big leagues. I'm going to go to the Southeastern Conference. And he washed out. Not everybody can be a Major League Baseball player. They top out at AAA. He should have been happy being a AAA ball player. He gets me a little fired up. I've seen him put on a show or two, and I didn't care for it. Got a couple of bits.
Speaking of him putting on a show, you should see him when he's not involved in football. But that'll be another story.
I prefer not to. Oh my God, I prefer not to. We've been talking about the Southeastern Conference Big Ten rivalry. I'm going to wrap it up by giving the Big Ten its flowers. The Big Ten 4-0 versus the SEC in the last 3 college football playoffs, which, oh, by the way, have been won by the Big Ten. And the SEC has not even made an appearance in the championship game. And this is what's most unsettling, or maybe disheartening, or maybe it's actually a positive. We're talking about how this rivalry is good now that the Big Ten is carrying its share of the weight. The 4-0 record I mentioned against the Southeastern Conference in the college football playoff, 137-54. The Big Ten has outscored the SEC 137-54. Wrap your mind around that. And speaking of the college football playoff, the Peach Bowl, it's a regular in the college football playoff, part of the rotation, and it's going to be doing so again this year. And the people that run the Peach Bowl also run the Aflac Kickoff. That'll be, of course, Auburn and Baylor at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on September 5th. David Epps, he's the new CEO of the Peach Bowl. He started that job on June 1st. He had been working there for 30-plus years. Gary Stokan, great guy, have a good relationship with him. He retired. David Epps taking over. What's this new era was like? We had an opportunity to speak to him. We're going to play that later in the program and get his thoughts on how that bowl game can manage to maintain its ties with the Southeastern Conference despite being a playoff game. Trust me, he works his way through it. David Epps will be joining us about 15, 16, 17 minutes. But on the other side, I want to get into some big business. Advertising on jerseys, we've talked about it. It's as inevitable as death and taxes. It's now coming to college football with regards to logo patches on jerseys. We're going to get into a few big deals that were announced, and then we're going to have Nick Lord, CEO and co-founder of No Cap Sports. He's going to work us through the minutia of these deals and give us big picture perspective on what it means for college football and perhaps give us the value of the SEC if it were to put patches on its jerseys across the board the way the Big 12 is going to do with Monster Energy. That'll be Nick Lord joining us next segment. He's Ronnie Sanders. I'm Scott Hamilton. This is Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon.
Good games, good friends, real stories. That's what Saturdays are all about on the Back Porch, proudly sponsored by Duck Club Bourbon.
It's Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon. Once more, we got about a month to go before the start of the college football season, but starting August 1st, teams are permitted up to 2 additional commercial logos on their uniforms and apparel, and they can also have 1 additional commercial logo on equipment during the preseason and regular season, an additional commercial logo on uniforms and apparel for conference championships. That's the way the NCAA frames it. Patches cannot be bigger than 4 square inches. Ronnie, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I think we're going to eventually get used to it, kind of like we've gotten used to so many other things. I think people are making a big deal about it. What do you say?
I mean, I'm not crazy about it, but I'm more of a traditionalist. You got to understand that. I mean, look, I'm a fan of traditional jerseys. I think I'm not a fan of alternate jerseys. So I'm more of a traditionalist, but I'm not. I don't want to see football jerseys looking like soccer jerseys. It kind of I don't know. I think it's too much. But again, if it's done tastefully, and it can generate, and everything nowadays is about generating revenue. And college football is unbelievably popular. And the more eyeballs you get, the more money you can generate.
I really don't mind it. I agree with you. Keep it tasteful. Keep it minimal as possible. But there is so much money tethered to this, and we got an example over the past week of how much money is tethered to this. Ohio State announcing a deal with J.P. Morgan Chase worth $17 million a year, Ronnie. There'll be a jersey or a patch rather, on all 36 of Ohio State's team jerseys. So that's a lot of change. But then we got this, and Ronnie, I kid you not, 3 hours after the Ohio State deal was announced, Notre Dame announcing a deal with SoFi worth between $18 and $20 million annually. That's a hell of a lot of cash. 3 schools in the Southeastern Conference right now have such arrangements. Arkansas with Tyson Foods, LSU with Woodside Energy, and Vanderbilt with SRM Concrete. Here's the one that's really got my attention, though, Ronnie, and it's not in the SEC, and we're going to go over this in a moment with Nick Lord of No Cap Sports. Cal Berkeley, in California, obviously the Bears, they have a deal with a company called DialPad. They're the only school in the ACC so far that has such an arrangement. DialPad is an AI business communication software company. So its customer isn't your traditional football fan. This is a business-to-business entity. And I think it makes perfect sense because where's Cal located? Silicon Valley. Who sits in the stands at Cal games? And believe me, people do go to the games. Shocking, I know. A bunch of tech geeks.
Yeah.
So this makes a lot of sense. But here's where it gets really interesting, Ronnie. If you recall, about a month ago, right at Big 12 Media Day, the Big 12 announced its deal with Monster Energy drink. It's now Big 12 Monster Energy football or Monster Energy Big 12 football, something to that effect, and basketball, men's and women's. The Monster Energy patch logo will be on all their uniforms. That deal's worth $20 million a year, right? That means only about $1 million going to the constituency of the Big 12. I've got to think they've got seller's remorse right now, and I got to think that if the SEC went down that road, it would be worth a whole lot more.
A whole lot more. I mean, you look at the premier brands in the Southeastern Conference. We've talked about it before. You've got 9, really 10 if you count Kentucky, 9 premier brands in the Southeastern Conference, and you don't have that many in the Big 10, and you certainly don't have that many in the Big 12. So I would be interested to know what the SEC could get as a whole entity. And I'm guessing it's a massive amount of money, and the Big 10 too.
Well, you might have an opportunity now to find out exactly how much. We're going to play our conversation with Nick Lord. Nick Lord is the CEO and co-founder of No Cap Sports. It's a firm that basically arranges marriages for NIL deals between universities and athletes and companies looking to get into college athletics. He was kind enough to join us on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline, and I picked his brain about these logo deals. How much are they worth and what could be coming down the road next? Here's our conversation with Nick Lord. Yeah, a lot of big deals being made in the world of college athletics. We got the news a few weeks ago about the Big 12 coming into its arrangement with Monster Energy. not only to have sponsorship of of logos on the uniforms, on the jerseys in the Big 12, but they're actually going to sponsor the entire sports, the Monster Energy Big 12 basketball or Monster Energy Big 12 football. And the schools are going to get about $1 million each, which that's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. I'm wondering how much the Big 12 left on the table, especially after seeing some of these deals that are trickling out now with individual schools making sponsorship deals of their own for jersey patches. Nick Lord, he is the CEO and co-founder of No Cap Sports. He's joining us now. And Nick, when it comes to these kinds of arrangements, you're an expert in the field. No Cap, a facilitator of NIL deals with individual athletes, universities, so on and so forth. I guess my first question for you, let's rewind it back. When you saw the Big 12 deal a few weeks ago, what was your initial reaction? Did you feel like they were setting the market too low, or at the moment, did that feel about right? How did you react?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they were setting the market too low. I think, the Big 12 probably has quite a bit of people on staff and probably got a lot of consultative work done to really put a value on what that deal was. There's a lot of criticism that the Big 12 got over social media, but in a deal like that had to be going on for quite a bit of time. And, I'm sure that the number they came with made sense for both parties. So, I think we're still just so early on in this world of jersey patches and also, conference-wide deals. There is no standard yet. So people are kind of working from, nothing. So I think we'll start to get more data on that next couple of years on future decisions. But, I think the deal was monumental and that it was a conference-wide jersey patch, which has never been done before. And it also gives universities in that conference the ability to acquire an additional patch on the other side. Because I think that's a lot of things people didn't realize when they saw the news.
Anytime you're the first to set the market, you're taking that risk of maybe leaving money on the table. But I think the Big 12 was also a bit of a prisoner because of the timing of it. They wanted to make the announcement during Big 12 Media Days. They wanted to have a big splash and show that they were being innovative and ahead of the curve. So I think that might have been a factor in all this. But what do you think the tenor is right now, though? If you're on the group chat with all the athletic directors, presidents, so on and so forth of the Big 12, what do you think the tone is when they're seeing these other deals come out?
It's probably a little bit of jealousy to some extent, but $1 million is $1 million. It's we're in like an economics point with college sport. I think that's helpful in terms of what the expenses are right now in this space. So, probably a little bit of that idea of what's happening across. But like I said, the university still have the ability to sell additional patches. So I really see that as really supplemental to what they're able to do on top of that across the board.
Yeah, we're joined by Nick Lord, CEO, co-founder of No Cap Sports. You can follow him on X at Nick@NoCap. All right, Nick, we got the word about Notre Dame. $18 to $20 million estimated deal with SoFi for its jersey patch. Ohio State, JP Morgan Chase, $17 million. We've got Tyson Chicken in the mix with Arkansas. There's so many other schools that are showing up with jersey patches. Who's the big one out there? Is Notre Dame going to, at the end of when it's all said and done, will that be the highest one, or can you see a Texas or perhaps a Southern Cal coming in with a bigger deal?
Yeah, they're going to continue to one-up each other. I think that when we look at the Tyson specifically, I think that's a little bit different because I think his name is, he's a big donor of Arkansas. So I think looking at that separate from what happened with Ohio State and Notre Dame isn't. I think the value that these programs provide is massive to companies like that. It's going to get them in front of a significant amount of very dedicated people and looking to support their university. So it's a worthwhile investment in my opinion to invest in these college programs and their national reach. But I think from a competition standpoint, every Big Ten university is going to try to one up the next. That's just part of the game that we're in, and who can get more creative and how much of that can get allocated to NIL, so you can compete from a recruiting standpoint as well.
Well, you talk about being creative, and jersey patches are creative. We've never seen them in college athletics before. What's next, though? Where does this stop, Nick? Are we going to see logos on helmets or ads on helmets, rather? Are we going to see something on the pant leg? What's next?
Yeah, I mean, I think helmets is an interesting one. I was talking to a good connect of mine the other day, and he was big on the helmet piece. But I think we're always going to try to figure out what else can be monetized in this space. I think for a long time, there's, a lot of these things weren't even able to be monetized. So, looking at it from a creative lens on how well we unlocking things to us advantage is always top of mind for these individuals. And that's a lot of the work we're involved in, is like, how do we continue to find new creative ways to generate revenue and monetize the assets that exist today. So it's important that universities are always looking towards that.
You talk to people throughout college athletics. You talk to people outside college athletics, people who are investing in the sports in various ways. We do have the Monster Energy deal with the Big 12, but from the people you talk to, your sources, your contacts, your peers, are we going to see comparable deals when it comes to perhaps the SEC or the Big 10?
I think so. I mean, most of them are, I think, shopping it to this extent. From conversations that I've had, I think a lot of the small conferences as well are doing so. I think you have to be. I think, if you're able to create conference deals to create additional revenue for these universities, that's a huge value to add as a conference, and to maintain and retain a lot of the universities that are in these conferences. So the more value you can provide at a conference level, the more success you're going to have within that conference. So, I think we're going to see more conferences doing these, conference level deals. I mean, we're even working on a couple. So we'll see more as come here.
Yeah, you didn't throw that by me. I caught that. You're working on a couple of deals there. I'll not ask you to get into the particulars of it, but given your expertise and your knowledge, your innate knowledge of this, can you give us a ballpark? I mean, what would the title sponsorship of the SEC, of SEC football, what kind of number could we be looking at?
Oh man, I would not even be able to give you a number, because I get so much criticism on the number they would even give. But it would be substantial, is what I would say, for sure.
Is there that big of a difference, though, at the Power 4 level? I mean, we talk about the revenue difference between the Big 10, the SEC, and then the ACC and the Big 12, but does that also translate to brand recognition or brand value? Can the SEC ask for more football-wise than, let's arbitrarily say, the Big 12 or the ACC?
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to come down to the data and looking at the contracts that each of those conferences have. Like I said before, like these things are something they're super calculated, and you got a lot of people involved, a lot of consultants involved, figuring out what really is the value of this. So a lot of the evaluate what it could be over the last since this became legal. So it'll be interesting to see like what that value comes out as when a deal gets official. But you also are dealing with it is like this is the first type situation, so people are. There's not any historical data to back up what it's going to, like it's supposed.
Yeah, being first is always a tricky proposition. My last question for you, Nick, given everything that's happened over the last year or so, is there a school specifically in the Southeastern Conference that might be doing some things NIL-wise, perhaps even revenue share-wise, that you find especially creative and you think could impact not only their bottom line, but help produce wins and losses on the football field, on the basketball courts?
From an SEC standpoint, we work with a couple of SEC schools. I can only really speak to the work that we're doing, but I think that some schools are really thinking about new creative ways to generate revenue, generate above cap opportunities. I think South Carolina is a good one. We're doing a lot of work with them on figuring out how to better monetize their alumni base and figuring out how to provide value to their alumni base to create additional dollars that can be put into the ecosystem. We've launched kind of first of kind cost savings model for pieces that allow us to go and those businesses on sponsoring athletes. So the schools that are thinking about how do we provide value first to our fan base and alumni base is important, and then using that value that you created to generate opportunities for athletes in their NIL is a thing that I think is going to be continue to rise.
Well, just one more question then. And I have to think that it makes things exponentially easier for you when you're dealing with a guy like a Jeremiah Donati, who not only has experience as an administrator, like as he was the athletic director at TCU before going to South Carolina, but he was also an agent. He worked for Lee Steinberg, so he knows how deals are done. He knows what's required to find the best fits. How does that streamline for guys like you who come in and basically marry schools and athletes together with NIL opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's extremely important. I think the folks that are leading these universities, they need to have an understanding of how deals like these operate, and a background in bringing deals to the table for athletes. I think is a huge value add, but also just structurally, like how do you build a business, true business operators? Because college sports is big business now. There's so many different things that are happening on a day-to-day basis, so many shiny objects that you can go and chase. So having discipline there as to what you're going to go after is extremely important. So, I think what he's doing specifically at South Carolina has been calculated, at least from all the stuff that I've seen. And I think, a lot of the athletic directors are moving towards that type of operational rigor.
He's Nick Lord, co-founder and CEO of No Cap Sports. Follow him on X at Nick@NoCap. Nick, your knowledge is unassailable, brother. We appreciate your perspective. We got to get you back on soon.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
Want to thank Nick Lord of No Cap Sports for joining us on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. And Ronnie, even he was hesitant to put a dollar amount on how much the Southeastern Conference could be worth. But to your point earlier, it's got to be buku dollars, because just the TV eyeballs alone would be worth significantly more than anything the Big 12 could bring in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no question. I mean, it's when you've got the kind of brands and you look at who those, I mean, and the coaches, brands, and not just in football, in basketball, across the board. I mean, the SEC, 20 years ago, how relevant was the SEC in college football? I'm sorry, in college basketball. And now, I mean, it's as good a conference as there is anywhere.
Yeah, we're only 1 year removed from arguably the greatest conference season ever in men's basketball. But to your point before, it was Kentucky and everybody else, or Kentucky and one school and then everybody else, and that other school would rotate through. Now, top to bottom, there's as much depth in basketball as there is in football. And it's really an impressive thing. And excellent insight, by the way, from Nick Lord of No Cap Sports regarding that. We're going to circle back around to college football playoff talk and bowl game talk. On the other side, we have David Epps, CEO of the Peach Bowl. He's going to join us on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. We're going to talk about what it's like to run a bowl game in the 21st century and what it's like to maintain your status as one of the elite bowl games with a tie-in to the Southeastern Conference. David Epps joining us in just a few minutes. He's Ronnie Sanders. I'm Scott Hamilton. It's Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon.
From the blind to the back porch, some traditions are built to be shared. Duck Club Bourbon, real heritage, no gimmicks. Proud sponsor of Back Porch Sports.
College football season's still a few weeks away, but not too soon to start talking about the postseason and, of course, these preseason kickoff games that have become such an important part of the college football schedule. And, of course, one of those is the big game in Atlanta every year at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Aflac Kickoff Game. Last year, South Carolina beating Virginia Tech. I was at that game. It was a fantastic scene. Looking forward to being in the house for Auburn and Baylor this go-around. And I'm willing to bet our guest is also excited about being in the house because he's been there many times, but he's in a new role. He was named the CEO of the Peach Bowl on June 1st, taking over for Gary Stokan, who had the job forever. I got to admit, David Epps, this is a big job for a guy like you, who you say you've been with the company now 30 plus years, but to take over for somebody like Gary, and Gary and I had a pretty good relationship, a little bit of pressure maybe?
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, and I worked side by side with Gary for 27 years and have been fortunate to have been on the team as we've made some great wins over that time, but some big shoes to fill, no question about it. But as my wife reminds me, I do have big feet. So I'm gonna embrace the opportunity and look forward to the future. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Well, just kind of tell me about the transition for you from your previous role into this job, and what are you going to do different than what Gary did? Did Gary give you any advice maybe as he was leaving, saying, hey, going forward, you might want to focus on this? It was something that I wasn't having to do, but you're going to have to do going forward.
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, the one thing college football has taught us over the last 5-6 years is that change is coming and it will continue to come. So one of the things we're focused on is, we're not in a reset position. We're not broken. As I tell our people, we're not having to fix the floor. We've got to figure out a different way to raise the ceiling. So having our neutral site game during Labor Day weekend, huge opportunity, but also going to be a challenge going forward, the way the college football scheduling is shaking out, being a part of the playoff for the next 6 years that we know of, but then beyond that, the uncertainty related to that. So a lot of what we need to be doing is figuring out how we try to future-proof ourselves. And, there wasn't a lot that's happened over the past 30 years that I haven't at least had my fingerprints on a little bit. So the good news is I'm not starting from scratch, but flexibility is going to be the real key, as it is for everybody in this business right now.
Yeah, how much trepidation is there with regards to the future of the postseason? Because I'm of a generation, the Peach Bowl is part of the postseason. It's one of the premier bowl games. Messing with its spot on the schedule, it's sacrosanct. You don't touch it. How much trepidation is there concerning about keeping the Peach Bowl's not only prestige, but its place right around New Year's and thereabouts?
Yeah, it's a fair concern. And, I always look at things, I was a fan first, right? So I look at things from a fan perspective, and certainly those of us of a certain age remember how important and valuable the tradition is around New Year's, whether it's New Year's Eve or New Year's Day or right around that weekend. And playing college football in and around that time period it's nostalgic, it's important. There was value built into that if you were a TV viewer or an attendee. And so for us going forward, obviously I mentioned we've got to be flexible. And that means that if something were to happen and these quarterfinals and semifinals weren't going to be played until a week later, or they were going to be played 4 days earlier, we've got to be willing to be flexible and sort of go with what the industry needs. But I also hope that whatever we settle on from a 12, 16, 24, week 0, whatever the machinations end up being, wherever we settle gives us an opportunity to continue to serve college football. Because ultimately, we used to be a reward for players, and that's what bowl games were. Now, the 6 of us that are in the playoff, we're a business trip, and we understand that. And we need to be able to serve our customers, who are the teams and the coaches and the CFP and the conference, the fans and the media, to make sure that the whole enterprise works, because we need a college football postseason that works and that doesn't abandon the history and tradition that guys like you and I appreciate.
Okay, you touched on something there that I was wanting to explore with you, and you teed it up absolutely perfectly. You have two trains running. You have the Aflac Kickoff Game, and you have the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, and they're bookends of the season, essentially. The Peach Bowl, to me, and again, we're traditionalists, the Peach Bowl, to me, I think of the SEC. It's one of the premier bowls with an SEC tie. How hard is it, though, to uncouple that going forward? Because you're not guaranteed to get an SEC team in the game because it is a playoff game. That's a trade-off, high price to pay, but I've got to think it's totally worth it.
It is. If you go back to the early 90s, we first became, and we made our bones as an ACC versus SEC game. Really right up until 2014 when we first got into the CFP. And then when you relinquish those conference ties fully, you're definitely left with some, I wouldn't say concern, but some trepidation about what could happen when the teams they're going to win their way to you. Nobody's going to select them to you. The wrinkle going forward that's going to be really interesting, that I don't think people are talking about yet, but they will as we get close to selection, is this will be the first year that the number 1, number 2, and number 3 seed actually gets some input on which of the playoff bowls they get to go to. So the number one seed will get to select its quarterfinal and its semifinal. The number two gets to pick its quarterfinal. So you're going to probably see, especially with us, I would guess the sugar because of proximity. ACC and SEC teams may geographically want to come to Atlanta. So it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, you're going to give up a little bit of what you had before, which may have been a geographic certainty, but you're also going to have a team and a fan base that chooses to come to you, presumably because it's going to be an easy trip for fans. Maybe they have some familiarity with the stadium. Maybe they played in a championship game there earlier in the month. So you got to live with both sides of that sword. You're going to be in this game, and we're prepared to.
Does the Aflac game kind of help you, though, maybe resolve or reconcile some of that conference affiliation situation? Because, again, we've got Auburn this year in the kickoff game, had South Carolina last year, obviously SEC teams. Is that something maybe that's going to be by design going forward, that we will have an SEC team in the kickoff each year?
Yeah, we've traditionally tried to have at least an ACC or SEC team as an anchor every year. And we will continue that. The biggest challenge now is that with both the ACC and the SEC at 9 conference games, and then if you have an out-of-conference rival, that gets you to 10 P4 games that are already determined for you. There's not as much inventory left in the marketplace for the neutral site kickoff games as there once was. So it's going to take a few years to shake this all out, because even coaches now, they look at what the selection committee may value on Selection Sunday when you get to December. And I think they want clarity on whether it's number of wins versus quality of wins versus quality losses. The example everybody holds up is last year that Texas lost a close game to Ohio State to open the season. If they hadn't played that game, they're a 10-win team in December. And does the selection committee look at a 10-win team versus the 9-win team and say, well, of course they're in. They're a 10-win team. So that's the not the concern, but the unknown about the neutral site games now is how appealing are they going to be to coaches whose ultimate goal is to make the playoff.
Yeah, and that goes back to what you were saying earlier, I think, about it being business trips now. That applies not only to the schools, but to the individual athletes. And I know you guys have a lot going on with regards to providing NIL opportunities for athletes. How is that playing a role in getting teams to come for the Aflac Kickoff Game? And what can you do going forward to maybe make that more robust?
Yeah, we're the first college football game to do something like this. It's been done with the New Era men's basketball event that they do out in Las Vegas. But we're working with Auburn essentially to put NIL money into the Auburn student athletes' hands. And then we're using them to help us promote ticket sales, event attendance, and then television viewership. So I like to tell people this is real, true NIL. We're going to pay the student athletes for them using their name, image, and likeness to promote our event of which they're a part. So I think it's all that will work going forward. We're building the mousetrap. It's a lot more complicated than I thought it was when you're dealing with a couple of dozen or more student athletes, and you have to figure out, is it a social media post? Is it an appearance? Is it a billboard? Is it a website? There are a lot of different factors that get built into it. But ultimately, if the landscape with NIL stays the way it is, it's a model we think going forward is an incentive, at least, for another team and a school to say, yeah, well, if this is a chance for us to drive more NIL for our players, that by extension gives us a little bit of a recruiting advantage. We're going to listen to you.
Yeah, I have to think that when they go and get kids out of the portal, then go, hey, we're scheduled to play in the Aflac Kickoff Game. You will have this, and this opportunity in addition to everything else we're going to bring to you. Just a couple more minutes with David Epps, the CEO of the Peach Bowl. And David, I have always felt like, and maybe because I'm a college football guy, I've always felt like the Peach Bowl is the epicenter of Atlanta sports. Atlanta, let's face it, is a fickle sports town, man. But the one consistent thing is the Peach Bowl and the area's love for college football. What do you do to embrace the city of Atlanta and to help elevate it as the center of college football? I know the College Football Hall of Fame is there. I went to the Maxwell Award Gala last year, had an absolute blast. What are you guys doing to contribute to that and the overall vibe?
Well, we unabashedly claim that Atlanta is the capital of college football. When you look at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and the Aflac Kickoff Game, the SEC Championship Game, the 10 schools within a 70-mile radius that play tackle football, the College Football Hall of Fame, there's a lot of proof points for that. And so we feel like we are at the center of that, and we want to continue to contribute to that. And part of that is just encouraging a business space that embraces anything related to college football, because being in the South and from the South, you know what that means to people. College football is just baked into our DNA. But the other thing that's important to us is that we're very charitably minded. And so our philosophy is, how are we able to use college football for the greater good? And there's so much talk about the negatives of college football. We've donated $72 million in our history in scholarship and other donations to charities. And so I tell our people, if we can do well, then we can do good. And that doing good is in our community in Atlanta, making sure we continue to invest in the city, in the sports ecosystem, because there are a lot of people in Atlanta. The Atlanta Sports Council, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, even the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta. We all want Atlanta to continue to be the capital of college football. So we work together to build and continue to build a city that's going to be successful doing that.
I want to leave you with this thought, a real quick personal Peach Bowl story, and you can take this to anybody. My first Peach Bowl was 2000, and it was it might have been 2001. It was North Carolina and Auburn. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that game. Ronald Curry was playing, and I was just blown away by the pyramids of Chick-fil-A sandwiches on press row, man. And we were just stuffing our computer bags with them, and it was New Year's Eve. My wife made the trip with me. My wife at the time, she was pregnant, so she stayed in the hotel. Took like an hour to get from the Georgia Dome to the hotel, and all the time I'm grabbing these Chick-fil-A sandwiches while I'm dodging New Year's Eve traffic, walking through. And the Peach Bowl special to me. Just put it that way.
Well, we appreciate that. We've college football is about memories. Yeah. In truth, you remember wins and losses and games, but you remember the memories you create in and around the games and the tailgates and the trips. And we're happy we could be part of that memory. Hopefully you'll get to come back and we'll create some new ones for you.
All right. He's David Epps, the CEO of the Peach Bowl. David, I look forward to seeing you on Labor Day weekend, brother. Auburn and Baylor. It's going to be a pretty good one.
Look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for having me on.
All righty. It's David Epps, the CEO of the Peach Bowl. Stick around. We'll be right back.
We believe Saturdays are built on family, tradition, and the stories that stick with you. Duncan Williams helps protect the legacy behind it all, today, tomorrow, and for what comes next.
Making the final lap, this edition of Back Porch Sports. I want to thank David Epps, CEO of the Peach Bowl, for joining us on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline, giving us the lay of the land from his perch atop one of the premier bowl games in all of college football. A quick reminder before we close things out, if you want to explore the prediction markets, well, guess what? Kalshi is going to give you a head start. Visit kalshi.com/blitz, and you'll get $20 to begin your journey in the prediction markets. That's kalshi.com/blitz. Ronnie Sanders, quick question for you. Have you ever been to the Peach Bowl?
I have. I've been a number of times. I went, I think I've got a Peach Bowl ring in there. Where I went as a GA at LSU. I went as the recruiting coordinator at Florida. I went as a student assistant at Auburn. So yeah, I've been I've been 3 times, but I remember maybe more than that.
I love it. I love it. I remember my first one. And I've got a really funny story before we close it out. I don't know if it's funny, but I think it's interesting. In the press area of the old Georgia Dome, Chick-fil-A was the sponsor. They would have a table with pyramids of Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
So you just grabbed as many as you wanted. And so guys would we're all poor sports writers, just stuff our bags with Chick-fil-A. And I had some friends who were making the drive to the Gator Bowl the next morning. And they were carbing up on Chick-fil-A, man, to make that drive. They were ready to rock. We come out, and my first Peach Bowl was Auburn, in North Carolina. Ronald Curry was the quarterback. And I was with Carlton Tudor, longtime columnist at the Raleigh News and Observer, and it's New Year's Eve, and we come out, and people are going bonkers in the street, just going crazy, man. We're trying to get to the hotel, and we're like a little panicky, like, oh my God, we're not going to get to it's going to take us hours to go to the hotel, and it's right over there. And then this guy we know pulls up in this blacked out Suburban. He's a photographer for the University of North Carolina, rolls down the window, get in. And we jump in, and I'm like, what in the hell was going on? This is insane. People are pounding on the hood and all that. And Toots, we lost Toots a few years ago, bless his heart. He's a chain smoker. He's up there just burning one after another. Well, and it took us an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to go where we could see the hotel, probably a half mile, 5 blocks, something like that. And I remember getting out of the vehicle going, is every bowl game like this? And they're not. That was exceptional, but that was a pretty good indoctrination to the Peach Bowl.
Yeah, my first one we played, we lost to Tennessee in the championship game the week before, or in the SEC championship game, lost 29-30 against Tennessee. And this is in '97, and we ended up playing in the Peach Bowl game, and ended up coming back and winning. We beat Clemson, and then we played Clemson at LSU, and then we got beat by Miami, and after where we got fired. Charlie Strong was the interim coach, but it was the third year in a row we played Miami. We played them. We opened up with them 2 years, the first 2 years over there, and then we lost to them our last year in the last game.
It's way better now. I was not a Georgia Dome fan. I actually went to a basketball tournament and NCAA tournament at the Georgia Dome, man, and it was just not cool. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it's the truth. It really is.
It's really a nice venue. We saw Madonna over there last year. It was,
of course you did.
It was 86 degrees, and of course, with all the flesh being shown, it was probably good that it was. But I'll leave that there.
You leave that one there. The thing about Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it's in such a wonderful location. College Football Hall of Fame right down the street, which I want to see them do more with it. I like the College Football Hall of Fame. I want to see it more robust, though. It's good. It's not great. I went to the Maxwell Award Gala there last year, and it was cool. And I'm hanging out with Hugh Green and Herschel and all these people, and Mac Brown was there and Travis Hunter and people like that. But I'm walking around, and I'm thinking this could be something even bigger. And I think inevitably they'll blow it out. I don't know how. Maybe it'll take somebody with some deep pockets to actually invest into it. But I think it would be worthwhile. I think it would. Well, especially as popular as the sport is, it would be nice to see it more robust than it is. But it's still a nice venue. And the stadium there is phenomenal. It's a great experience. It is a great experience. I'll tell you what else is a great experience. Back Porch Sports. And this one is over. Again, we want to thank Nick Lord of No Cap Sports and also David Epps, CEO of the Peach Bowl, for joining us on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. Don't forget to check out our podcast. You can get it on YouTube. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever you do for podcasts, do for this one. Leave a comment. And don't forget to hit me up on social media, X, old Twitter, at Scott H Sports. The DMs are open. Questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, whatever, throw them at me. If there's a topic you would like for us to discuss, we will do it. If there's a guest you would like to have us come on, we will do our darndest to facilitate it. Otherwise, until next time, he's Ronnie Sanders, I'm Scott Hamilton, and this has been Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon.